Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Suranandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Shiva Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupad Paramamsapad Rajagacharya Stutta Stata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Jaya Vishnupad Paramamsapad Rajagacharya Stutta Stata Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Papa. Good morning, devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading the last two verses of the chapter today. Canto 5, chapter 18, the residents of Jambu Dweep offer prayers. Reading text 38 and 39. Karuti Vishwastiti Samyamodhayam Yasyepsitam Nepsitam Ikshitur Gunai Maya Yattayo Brahmate Tad Ashrayam Gravno Namaste Guna Karma Sakshine. Guna Karma Sakshine. This is verse 18. I guess I'll recite the Sanskrit for 18 and word for word, or excuse me, not 18, 30, 38. I will do the word for word for verse 38. Karoti, performing, Vishwa, of the universe, Stiti, the maintenance, Samyama, winding up, Udayam, creation, Yasya, of whom, Ipsitam, desired, Na, not, ipsitam, desired, ikshituhu, of the once glancing over, ikshituhu, gunai, with the modes of material nature, maya, the material energy, yata, as much as, ayaha, iron, brahmate, moves, tat ashrayam, placed near that, gravnaha, a magnetic stone, namaha, my respectful obeisances, te, unto you, guna karma sakshine, that sounds very attractive, guna karma sakshine, the witness of the actions and reactions of material nature. Translation and purport. Well, I guess I'll do the translation of 38 and the translation of 39, and we'll go back to the purport of 38. So this is the translation of 38. O Lord, you do not desire the creation, maintenance, or annihilation of this material world, but you perform these actions for the conditioned souls by your creative energy. Exactly as a piece of iron moves under the influence of a lodestone, inert matter moves when you glance over the total material energy. Verse 39 translation. My Lord, as the original boar within this universe, you fought and killed the great demon Hiranyaksha. Then you lifted me, the earth, from the Garbhadak ocean at the end of your tusk, exactly as a sporting elephant plucks a lotus flower from the water. I bow down before you. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prayers Offered to the Lord by the Residents of Jambudvip. Thus ends the chapter. So back to the second to last verse, which is text 38. I will read the purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sometimes the question arises why the Supreme Lord has created this material world, which is so full of suffering for the living entities entrapped in it. The answer given herein is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not wish to create this material world just to inflict suffering on the living entities. And the Supreme Lord creates this world only because the conditioned souls want to enjoy it. The workings of nature are not going on automatically. It is only because the Lord glances over the material energy that it acts in wonderful ways. Just as a lodestone causes a piece of iron to move here and there. Because materialistic scientists and so-called Sankhya philosophers do not believe in God, they think that material nature is working without supervision. But that is not the fact. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 6, verses 18 and 19, the creation of the material world is explained as follows. Yadyapi Sankhya Mane Pradhan Karma Jada ha ite kabu nahe jagat srijan Nija Shristi Shakti Prabhu Sanchare Pradhane Ishvarera Shaktye Tabe Haye Ta Nirmane. Atheistic Sankhya philosophers think that the total material energy causes the cosmic manifestation, but they are wrong. Dead matter has no moving power, and therefore it cannot act independently. The Lord infuses the material ingredients with his own creative potency. Then, by the power of the Lord, matter moves and interacts. That was the translation of the CC verse that was recited. Prabhupada continues the purport as follows. Sea waves are moved by the air. The air is created from ether, and ether is produced by the agitation of the three modes of material nature. And the three modes of material nature interact due to the Supreme Lord's glance over the total material energy. Therefore, the background of all natural occurrences, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Madhyadhyakshena prakrtihi suyate sa characharam. This is also further explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilita, chapter 5, verse 59 through 61. Jagat karana nahi prakriti jadarupa shakti sancharirya tare Krishna kare kripa. Krishna shakti prakriti haya gona karana agni shakti locha yaiche karaye jarana. Attaiva Krishna mula jagat karana prakriti karana yaiche ajagalastana. Because prakriti, or material nature, is dull and inert. Dull and inert. It cannot actually be the cause of the material world. Lord Krishna shows his mercy by infusing his energy into the dull, inert material nature. Thus, Prakriti, by the energy of Lord Krishna, becomes the secondary cause, just as iron becomes red hot by the energy of fire. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Prakriti is like the nipples on the neck of a goat, for they cannot give any milk. Thus, it is a great mistake on the part of the material scientists and philosophers to think that matter moves independently. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Guru Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again, good morning, devotees. Sorry, all. So I'll read again the translation of verse 38. O Lord, you do not desire the creation, maintenance, or annihilation of this material world, but you perform these activities for the conditioned souls by your creative energy. Exactly as a piece of iron moves under the influence of a lodestone, inert matter moves when you glance over the total material energy. So I don't have any supplementary shastra to add to these. I just have some points that I wrote down on these two verses, and I'll try to speak about them and also speak about Prabhupada's purport. So the first thing that came out of this for me, by the help of other devotees, is that it's the mercy of Krishna that he acts like a magnet. He moves the material energy, and it's out of his mercy that these things happen, because inert matter can't do anything on its own. And the only reason the material energy, or the prison of the material cosmos, even exists is because of our own desire. And so it's actually his mercy that we are even able to gratify our senses without him. He allows these things to happen, not because he wants them to, but because we want them to. Prabhupada says in the first paragraph here that the Supreme Lord creates this world only because the conditioned souls want to enjoy it. So the material cosmos is here because we want to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And actually, if you carry out this logic even further, you can see that it's very hard for somebody to hear this who is in the throes of mental illness, but it's still the truth that if you follow the logic of this, that this material world is created because the conditioned souls want to enjoy it, we also suffer because we want to suffer, because the process of acting to enjoy is a package deal. It doesn't come without suffering. Those with intelligence can understand this, that any act to control and thus enjoy without Krishna inherently comes with some suffering. There's no avoiding it. And so you could even say that we suffer because we want to suffer, which is a very interesting point, because some people can take that as a personal challenge. They could say, well, this place is dark and it sucks and I see no way out. So I'm just going to go dig deeper. I'm just going to go darker and darker and darker and just see how far it goes, because what else is there? Uh, yeah, that's a whole other tangent of conversation, but just something that came to mind. But yeah, this place exists because Krishna allows it, and it's really interesting the fact that he's mentioned Krishna's energy, and Krishna himself is mentioned as a magnet. It's very interesting uh, imagery for us to contemplate. Um, he acts, we could say he acts like a magnet because he's actually the most attractive force in existence. His personality, he himself is the most attractive thing and person in all of existence. And so it's no wonder that persons and objects move in relation to him, because he has that force. He has that attractive force that he can move things and move persons. And it's interesting that he can move persons and inert things simply by his looking at them, simply by glancing at the material cosmos, the material energy, things move. This is like the ultimate. So in Jungian psychology, we have archetypes. Archetypes are kind of like blueprints of human behavior. And one of the archetypes is the magician. The magician uses tools and uses esoteric knowledge to solve problems, and he can amaze and bewilder persons by the knowledge and power that he has, the intelligence that he has. And this is like the ultimate expression, and in fact, origin of that archetype, is that Krishna can move anything just by looking at it. He doesn't have to touch it. He can just look and move an entire galaxy, an entire universe, multiple universes, unlimited universes. He can move so much. That is like the ultimate magician's trick, the magician's power. And that he can move anyone and anything simply by looking. We have the expression of this in pop culture of X-Men. Those who are familiar know of Magneto. Magneto is a mutant human who has the special power of being able to move metal or anything with metal inside it, because he has magnetic power to move objects simply by his will. He doesn't have to touch it, just like how a magnet can move other magnets or move magnetic metals simply by being near them. So this is the expression, the mundane expression of Krishna's power. Our desire to have these powers is there. Another interesting thing to think about in this regard is that it's a fact, and of course everything in Srimad Bhagavatam and the other Shastra corroborate that everything moves by Krishna's will, by Krishna's ultimate power, but he allows us to act, to play a role, and it makes it look like we might be doing things, but it's really him that's either allowing it to happen or doing it himself, depending on the jiva and the situation. But ultimately, it's all him, because even if he just simply allows something to happen, it's under his jurisdiction, and it's his energy that actually carries it out. And so it's interesting to consider that we as conditioned souls have a false ego, transient false ego that has layers of complexity to it. I would even argue that it's fragmented. It has many parts, and we we may do things. They don't even have to be special. They can just simply be waking up and taking a shower, and we can consider that I'm doing this because it appears that I'm the one like I'm waking up, even if I consider myself my body. I'm waking up and I'm moving and I'm consciously deciding to go here and do this and do that. Or if you take it even a step further back, I'm making the decision to direct my body to do these things. But then if you take a step even further back, it's really Krishna's allowing all these things to happen, but we may think it's happening under our control because of the filter of the false ego. Krishna is actually the magnet, the magnetic power that moves all things. Uh, but we may think we're the doer because of this layer of false ego that impedes us. It gets in between us as a jiva and Krishna as the supreme soul. And so there's a thick filter there that tricks us into thinking that we're the doer. I'll read through the purport and comment on some of the aspects of the purport, and then I'll read verse 39 again and just comment on that. So I'll read through the purport again. The workings of nature are not going on automatically. It is only because the Lord glances over the material energy that it acts in wonderful ways, just as a lodestone causes a piece of iron to move here and there. Because materialistic scientists and so-called Sankhya philosophers do not believe in God, they think that material nature is working without supervision. But that is not the fact. So Prabhupada's illustrating here that atheistic persons, no matter how intelligent they actually are, they're missing the big picture. They're missing the ultimate truth, the supreme absolute truth. They think that mundane matter is ultimately under no one's supervision, no one's control, which is interesting psychology, because that, if that argument were true, that allows them to manipulate matter. You're like, well, material matter is not under anyone's control. That means I could be potentially the one to control it. So that's an interesting point, that as long as we have this exploitive mentality, this desire to exploit material nature and other jivas, then we'll never know, we'll never experience who the actual proprietor is. Krishna will always be veiled and hidden, with the speak of Radharani and all the other Vaishnavas. So the atheistic persons, even if they have high intelligence, they also want to exploit. And so they think this matter is for me to use for my own pleasure. And the other jivas are also under my subjugation because of the power of whatever intelligence I think I have or other people think I have. So Prabhupada's confronting this mentality in this purport. It's interesting. He starts the purport by countering a possible argument that persons may argue: if God exists, why would he allow so much suffering? in the very beginning of the purport, Prabhupada addresses that possible argument. Well, it exists because we want this place to exist. God doesn't necessarily want us to be here and to do these things and bring about our own pain, but because we want it, it's created. And of course, depending on how deep somebody is subjugated by their false ego, they'll take it one way or another. They might be intrigued, and anyway, there's a whole spectrum of how they might react, but that's a direct challenge to the false ego that it's actually you who wants the suffering. It's like, whoa, what? What are you saying? So that's a direct challenge to transient ego right there. And then Prabhupada moves on to challenge the atheistic philosophers and atheistic scientists by addressing that they think there is, what is the word that Prabhupada used? Without supervision, atheistic persons with such intelligence think that nature is working without supervision. In other words, in a more personal and humanistic terminology, the female form of nature, this lady, is working without supervision. In other words, she has no male, no male protector, no male guidance, and thus she's open for me to manipulate and use and enjoy. So Prabhupada points this out in this paragraph, and then he moves on to quote. I don't know who says this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm just going to guess it's Mahaprabhu. But he goes on, continuing the purport by quoting Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is really interesting because it not only does it counter these arguments that Prabhupada's presenting, but it also adds rasa. And also Mahaprabhu is so merciful that he not only counters these arguments, but he throws in the rasa or the potential of spiritual rasa that people can join in on. Like, you're false, but here's also the other stuff that you're actually hankering for. He doesn't just simply say, you're false, shut up. He's like, you're false, and why not join us? Why not take up your actual position? So I'll read the quote from the CC. Atheistic Sankhya philosophers think that the total material energy causes the cosmic manifestation, but they are wrong. Dead matter has no moving power, and therefore it cannot act independently. The Lord infuses the material ingredients with his own creative potency. Then, by the power of the Lord, matter moves and interacts. It's basically saying that the female energy is not inert, and Krishna, as the male energy, combines with the female energy and things happen. Sea waves are moved by the, this is interesting. Prabhupada, I've read this so many times throughout the Bhagavatam, but it's so easy to forget because it's so counter to, not necessarily counter to modern thinking, but it's so much in greater detail than modern thinking. Prabhupada goes on to explain the sequential process of subtle matter into increasingly gross matter and how it's moved. But he retracts, he goes backwards. He says, sea waves are moved by the air. The air is created from ether. The ether is produced by the agitation of the three modes of material nature. And the three modes of material nature interact due to the Supreme Lord's glance over the total material energy. Therefore, the background of all natural occurrences is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada takes a gross practical example that anybody can relate to, is that sea waves are moved by the air, and then he retracts. He goes further back, subtler, increasingly subtle, more subtle, even more subtle, all the way back to the original supreme cause, which is Krishna himself, and Krishna's energy. And then he quotes the next Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, which says, because Prakriti, or material nature, is dull and inert, it cannot actually be the cause of the material world. Lord Krishna shows his mercy by infusing his energy into the dull, inert material nature. Thus, Prakriti, by the energy of Lord Krishna, becomes the secondary cause, just as iron becomes red hot by the energy of fire. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Prakriti is like the nipples on the neck of a goat, for they cannot give any milk. And then Prabhupada concludes, thus it is a great mistake on the part of the material scientists and philosophers to think that matter moves independently. So as I was saying, it's interesting that Prabhupada is presenting arguments, he's countering them by quoting Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Mahaprabhu, Gauranitai, Panchatattva are so extremely merciful that not only are they countering the materialistic atheistic argument, but they're also giving hints that there's rasa here. There's something here that you don't know about and that you actually want and need, and it's here, and here's a little taste. Like maybe you'll take the bait, we'll see. But it's saying that Prakriti, or material nature, which is inherently feminine, that's explained in the Shastra, dull and inert. In other words, not pointed, it's expansive. Whereas the male energy is pointed, it's directed and concentrated, and which is Krishna. And just like a woman can never give birth on her own, she needs the male energy in order to produce a child. Similarly, material nature, Prakriti, feminine, dull and inert, expansive and not concentrated, cannot be the cause of the material world. She can't act on her own. So Lord Krishna shows his mercy by infusing his energy into the dull, inert material nature. So he's infusing his masculine, concentrated, pointed energy into the dull energy. Thus, Prakriti, by the energy of Lord Krishna, becomes the secondary cause. Thus, the feminine Prakriti energy becomes the cause, but she's really the secondary cause. She gives birth, but it's only because the male Krishna gave her the energy to do so. And so this is what the atheistic philosophers and scientists are missing. They don't understand that there's a proprietor. They can't even understand that material nature is feminine. I mean, they might have a hint of it, but even if they have a hint of it, they just want to exploit her. They don't understand that she has a husband. And so, by the energy of Krishna, Prakriti acts as a secondary cause. She causes things to happen, but it's only because the hidden veiled actor of Krishna himself is absent from conscious awareness unless we practice, or more specifically, unless we take Mahaprabhu's instructions and the Chaitanya Charitamrita to chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, engage in the process of hearing and chanting. Then the veiled controller, who is Krishna, gradually becomes revealed to you by his mercy. So it's interesting. Again, we have possible arguments against religion, against spirituality. Prabhupada immediately addresses them. Then he goes on to quote Mahaprabhu as a counter argument, and by Mahaprabhu's mercy, not only is it a counter argument, but it's a brief, not even a brief, it just depends on the level of consciousness, an introduction to how it actually works and into the rasa, into the actual love, into the actual loving interactions between Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, Sita Ram, Shiva and Durga, like on down the line, there's interactions between living entities that give manifestation to all these other things. And there's actual taste, there's actual um, loving interactions there. So, considering that, then we move to verse 39, which is the final verse of the chapter. Bhumi, the earth, is speaking, who is Mother Earth. She's feminine. She's in an expansion of Radharani's energy. She says, "My lord, as the original boar within this universe, you fought and killed the great demon Hiranyaksha. Then you lifted me, the earth, from the Garbhodaka ocean on the end of your tusk, exactly as the sporting elephant plucks a lotus flower from the water. I bow down before you." So this verse is wonderfully full of loving taste, loving interactions. There's chivalry here. Uh, Lord Boar, Lord Varaha, is saving Bhumi, a lady, from danger. There's lots of chivalry there, which follows the Prabhupada's purport. He's showing that there's rasa there, that there's interaction between male and female in its highest form of Radha and Krishna. And then we see an expansion of that here between Lord Varaha and Bhumi, the earth. But besides that point, I thought it was interesting to note here that Krishna likes to act like an actor. He likes to, like children, he likes to play pretend. Children like to use their imagination to pretend that their body, their mind, their environment is something different from what it apparently actually is. And they do this for fun. They do this for taste, for rasa between themselves and other children or adults. They like to play. And so you can see Krishna is the origin of that. He likes to play. His original form is a cowherd boy, but he likes to take the form of a boar sometimes. And he loves to play. He loves to pick up the earth from the bottom of the universe when she's in distress, and he loves to kill demons in the process. So, like an actor, he likes to take on different forms and different missions to carry out for his own pleasure and for the pleasure of his devotees, for those jivas who are willing to cooperate with him in a loving relationship. They just have fun. That's it. They just have fun. And I wanted to point out that he likes to slay demons for fun, and many it's explained in a purport in Bhagavad Gita by Prabhupada that Arjuna addresses Krishna as, I don't remember the specific name. I want to say Madhusudan, but I don't remember specifically. But anyway, Arjuna addresses Krishna in one of his names of slaying demons. And Prabhupada explains that he does this because Arjuna has doubts for Arjuna or for any devotee in Krishna's doubts in Krishna's love and all the expanses that could turn into. They're like demons. They're quote unquote evil forces that get in between us and Krishna. And as you can see, Krishna loves to slay demons. He loves to slay our doubts. So that's something to consider. And it's no, we may have doubts, and that might be an impediment for us, but it's no impediment for Krishna. He slays them for fun. He slays them to increase our love and to show us that he loves us and that he wants us to join in a relationship with him. Yeah, and I'll just end on a point that I already mentioned that um, he likes to play pretend. Um, well, it's not really play pretend for him, but for our understanding, it's akin to children doing play pretend. They like to use their imagination to do whatever, but for Krishna, it's it's not imagination. It's actually whatever he wants and desires that actually manifests. But we can relate to that by seeing that in human behavior that we like to imagine and play and act like he actually, but he does the same thing, but he actually does it. Um, and part of that is that he likes to act chivalrous. He likes to save the damsels in distress. The damsel, the young lady of the earth, as Bhumi, she was in distress. The demons, which the details of this are completely beyond my comprehension, but the demons had arranged that the Earth was out of its normal orbit and at the bottom of the universe within the Garbhodaka Ocean, and apparently a what's the word? Distressful, unnatural, unfortunate scenario for Bhumi, and she cried out for help. And Krishna came in his chivalrous bhav in the form of Lord Boar and saved her, slayed the demon, killed the demon, and saved her from the bottom of the ocean. And so that's all I have to share. If any devotees have any questions, comments, or corrections, please, please share. Chat. You're welcome, Yasudev. Thank you, and thank you for your encouragement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Nagari Krishna was about to say something. I'm going to let him speak.
Hi. Okay.
Thank you, Tarka Prabhu. Thank you so much, Nagaraj Nitai Prabhu, for that wonderful rendition of the verse. I was just thinking that analogy that Shukadev Goswami uses about how a magnet moves as inert matter, and Krishna being the source of all energies, he has different types of there's forces actually move different living entities and inert matter. So, like even in physics, there's this classification as well: body forces, which are like field forces, like magnetism, gravitational force, etc. And then there's contact forces, which is like a push and pull, and then frictional forces. So I was thinking, even with in rasa as well, when you see Krishna's the forces that are actually active when Krishna is interacting with these devotees, um, it's not just like just of a physical nature, right? Um, it's actually full of rasa. So, for example, with Bhumi and Varahadev, he actually impregnated Bhumi, and they had a son by the name of Narakasura. So similarly, even with Karnadakshai Vishnu, when the creation process, yes, it's a physical activity in that living entities have to then enter into the womb of material nature and then get come alive again. But it's not just a physical process. The description is that Karnadakshai Vishnu looks at Brahma Devi, and Rama Devi is actually the consort of Karnadakshai Vishnu. And then that glance then is Sada Shiva, and then we're going to celebrate, incarnation of Sada Shiva in the form of Advaita Acharya on Thursday. So there's rasa, in there. That's like a conjugal rasa. So yes, Krishna appears as Varahadev because he's a demon. So nonsense Krishna, it can be said that his function is to restore religious principles when there's an imbalance. So there was an imbalance, and so he has to appear. But then out of that whole in Krishna fulfilling that duty, there's then an expression of manifestation of conjugal rasa between Varaha Dev and Bhumi, you know. So it's quite amazing, as you're saying, is that with Krishna, when he does things, yes, there's like things he's supposed to do because after all, he's a supreme personality of Godhead and things are supposed to work, you know. But he does it with rasa, and then it actually attracts, you know. So I was even something also came to mind that Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains in the Madhura Kadambani that when you've perfected the chanting of the holy name, there's a specific sequence in which your senses, the senses of the Atma, they come alive. So first of all, you'll see Krishna. And so Krishna's form is like a body force. So there's no physical contact yet, but you get so affected that you then faint. And then Krishna takes compassion on you, and then he actually touches you. And then by that touch, then your physical sense of touch then comes alive. So first your eyes get activated, then your touch gets activated, then he hugs you. Or in the case of for example, Brahma, he got shook with his hand because the relationship is one of friendship. So depending on what relationship you have, what rasa, Krishna will actually touch you in a specific way. And then you'll smell Krishna, then your sense of smell gets activated, So in this way, it's like, yeah, Krishna, one could say he's far away, the Supreme Lord is far away, But when we come before the deity, we're seeing him and his form is actually affecting us. So we should actually take it how this is a body force. There's a gravitational magnetism of rasa, whatever you want to call it, that's actually affecting us, And so I'm just, appreciating, how you put it and how Krishna's form and his pastimes, they have a force. And if we think about it, we get basically that's how Krishna helps us to actually revive our eternal relationship. Different forces of Krishna, how they actually awaken our original identity. So I really appreciate your presentation.
Very well. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your comment. Your comment is so encouraging because it highlights the variety of the forces of Krishna and how he does things to attract us. And then what we have to look forward to when that attraction is actually finally united. Like the variety of it is endless. That's very enticing. That's very encouraging. And it's encouragement for me at least to keep trying my best. So thank you for adding that. I appreciate it. Hare Krishna. And what time is it? Braj Leela and Ekavira Haribol, thank you for attending. We have 3 minutes left if anybody else wants to say anything, otherwise we can end. I think Tarka doesn't speak.
Yes, few quick comments. I love hearing from Gauri Krishna. He's bright, he's intelligent, and I just find it really gratifying to see what his intellect does when he studies the books and applies himself to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. the result is just really nice.
Agreed.
I love to see when an intelligent devotee wraps their head around the philosophy and engages their intellect in Krishna consciousness in that way. Anyway, I want to thank you for a very nice class, and don't have any questions particularly, or not much to add, but earlier on you were talking about the way in which living entities are falsely thinking themselves the doer, even in ordinary activities, waking up, showering, and so on. And so we have from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about this in the 3rd chapter, text 27, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate, that the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. What was the other thing? You were not sure who was speaking in the quotations from Chaitanya Charitamrita. In both cases, the 2 quotations are both directly Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is speaking, and that's the case for much of Adi Leela. He's just explaining various things, and he is extraordinary. His command of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is extraordinary. He explains so many things, and it's very advanced Krishna conscious science. It's an extraordinary thing. Anyway, it was he speaking.
Thank you.
That's pretty much all I got. We just passed over 8 o'clock, so I'll just roll away. Thanks again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for quoting the Bhagavad Gita verse too. That'll give me something to meditate on today. I shall read that. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you for your comments and thank yous. Yeah, it's an honor to try to serve Shastra for the pleasure of the devotees. All glories to Prabhupada, Radha Damodar. I hope everyone has a nice day full of miracles and love. Hare Krishna.